Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Brass Junkies. I am your host, Andrew Hitz, and I am joined today by my lovely quarantining co-host, Lance LaDuke. Lance, how are you today?
I'm awesome. I shaved my back today. I started at 7 a.m., and then I just wrapped up. It's, 13 hours and 40 minutes. Pretty good.
That's not bad.
Well, I have to say it. About at the halfway mark, I decided to wax.
Because you had a...
Why are you shivering?
Yeah. You had a back home waxing kit?
Duh.
I guess
there were like tons of them. No toilet paper, but there were lots of back home waxing kits.
You bought a
as it turns out,
pallet of them at Costco back on
right.
March 6th. So we are joined today by a guest who, sadly for him, is a good enough friend that we can just make him sit here for the introduction rather than dealing with it later. So this is the original plan was we could talk to JD Shaw for like the 8th time, or we could interview someone who's actually a famous horn player. So we got Jeff Nelsen on the line of Canadian Brass and Indiana University, and other than that, not that much. So Jeff, how are you?
I was good.
When?
Even quarantine can't keep me safe from you guys. What the? Good to see you.
So we are... we are happy that you all are here. We hope that everyone is safe and healthy. And I saw a great tweet actually yesterday, which was someone collected the opening words of emails that they had received, and they called it a poem, which had like 140,000 likes the last time I looked. And it was very funny because they ranged from I hope that you are thriving to we will link to it in the show notes actually, because it is very funny. Our Patreon patrons already saw it, but you should, because it's kind of awkward now. It's like, because you can't say I hope this email finds you well, and it's like, I'm hoping I don't die. Like, no, I'm not well. I'm like worried about every old person I know. I'm not well. So hey Jeff, I hope you're well.
It's a nice segue from old person. Yes, this old person is well, thanks.
Wait, how old are you? You're not as old as Lance, are you?
50.
50.
Oh, yeah. No. You got it. I'm ahead of you.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, you're not that old.
I'll race you.
Basically, my definition of what an old person is a sliding scale, and it's just however old Lance is. Anyone Lance old or above is old.
I'm honored because it used to be Jeff Connor. But now I guess Jeff Connor is like...
No, Jeff's always been like, Jeff's like my dad old.
That's pretty good.
My dad might be 78, but anyway, we wanted to take a moment to thank everyone who has become a Patreon patron, and for you to know that we are starting something called Brass Junkies Sundays, which Jeff Nelsen doesn't know this, but we're going to have him on every Sunday. Actually, true story, we are now recording all of our bonus content, which you can access at patreon.com/thebrassjunkies. We are recording all of that live on Zoom with an audience of our patrons, and they just are muted while we do our thing. And I recorded the Brass Junkies behind the scenes report for April 2020, and I told them that Jeff was going to be the guest on this upcoming episode before Jeff knew that he was going to be on there. I told him, I was like, well, he doesn't know this yet, but it's not like he's going to be busy, and he's a good enough friend that he'll feel really bad if he says no, so he's going to be the guest on like sometime this weekend. This was on like Wednesday, and it got some chuckles. So anyway, they knew before Jeff knew that Jeff was going to be the guest on this episode. So
that's real magic.
Yeah, that is kind of magical. So, but anyway, we're doing everything. We're doing the Jacobs quotes, the music practice coach, the Lance learns to play. That's old. The deep dives, the deep thoughts with Lance, which is a deep dive into something in the music industry. The Performance and Pedagogy podcast. A lot of really good stuff that we're doing live for everybody on there. So thank you to everybody that's gone to Patreon. and become a Patreon patron. We've had a few in the last couple of days that have signed up, which is awesome. And then I think the last piece of housekeeping here is that we are now up to 222 ratings on Apple Podcasts, which is awesome. We're trying to get to 250. One that I don't know how I missed this before, but a 5-star review from February 19th, and the person's name is not James Markey's mother. And the subject of the review is not as cool as James Markey. And then the review is, I'm only writing this review, the first one I've ever left for any show, in the hopes that they read it on the podcast. This is one of my favorite podcasts. I listen to it religiously when it comes out every other week. Great content. I find myself laughing out loud on my commute. Well, how's that working out for you right now? And even me, community band hack, gets a lot out of it. But where the heck is James Markey? Why hasn't he been on? 3 question marks. Get on it, you guys. He rocks. Signed, definitely not James Markey. And in parentheses, seriously, it's not, but get him on the show. So thank you, not James Markey's mother. Yeah, he would be amazing. We would love to talk to him. And I've been talking to Steve Lang for years of the Boston Symphony about having him on, and Toby Oft agreed we should maybe just have all the trombones at once. They're all free. We're all free, which is, I joke about so I don't cry, but we're kind of all free all the time. So that would actually be a pretty cool episode. But I don't know. I do know Steve Lang well enough to tell you that he's the next guest without asking him first. But James Markey and Toby Oft, I do not know well enough to just like instruct them. Actually, I've already told an audience that you're next, so they'd be like, "I'm sorry, who is this?" So, but we'll get on that. So, thank you to everybody who has left a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get the Brass Junkies. Lance, am I forgetting anything before we have to pretend that we care about Jeff?
A lot of people don't get the Brass Junkies. Doesn't matter how hard they try.
Guess how many times my wife has, guess how many total minutes my wife, who is a horn player and a professional musician, has listened to the Brass Junkies. 0 minutes. She has literally never heard a single second of the podcast, which at this point she thinks is really funny. That kind of happened organically over a few years, and now the last 2 she finds it very funny because she occasionally will find people on the road when she's guest conducting. You're like, "Oh, I'm a huge fan of the Brass Junkies," and then she says, "How is it?" And they go, "Wait, what?" And she says with a very proud smile, "I've literally never heard a second of it." And then
I wouldn't ask her about the rest of the time you speak in the house.
Oh, yeah.
She's listening.
I think if you added up all of the time that anyone who's related to us has listened to our podcast, it would still be a number less than 1 minute.
Yeah, if you don't count, I think my teenage nephew Jacob listens because he's a euphonium player. But we swear, so that's funny. Like when you're 17.
Can you let me know when I'm supposed to start listening?
Wait, who's our guest today?
His name is Jeff, and is it Jeff that has 2 E's? Because that's Jeef. No. I can never remember whether he misspells his first name or his last name.
I just put it together that Jeff Connor and Jeff Nelsen both spell their names wrong.
They do.
Wrongly.
ERNELSEN. So, but in all seriousness, he's now he may be flipping me the double bird right now. But we do actually want to talk to Jeff. It'd be funny if we pre-booked him, told people publicly, and then we just did like a 65-minute intro. See, here's the thing is there's a good chunk of our audience, 10-15% of our audience, that would be their favorite interview ever. If we literally never let you talk, we would get emails praising us, and then 85% of the audience would be like, "You are horrible humans. I hate you. I hate that you are putting anything out in the world." So
my students would love it.
Yeah, I'm sure they would. Exactly. See, they'd be with the 15%. My students would love it if I got asked to do a podcast and then they didn't let me speak. That'd be like a dream. So anyway, so let's piss off your students. Why don't you talk? How are you, Jeff?
I'm good.
Let's talk about the lighting in your studio. Is this in your basement that we're looking at right now?
I don't think it's even his house.
Yes, it is.
Because
Okay.
he had this crazy lighting on, and then he goes, wait, and then he pulled out his phone and he started he's got like phone controlled lights, and there's a lot of different settings. There was colored lights, and you said one of your students set that up for you?
Yes.
Is that back when he's a great interview, isn't he? Yep. So I know I asked you a yes or no question, but you're supposed to then talk about it.
He did.
What is
He's awesome.
what is his name?
His name's Daniel Dickey. He's finishing his master's degree here,
you're
and
just
he's
making it
back
up.
in Texas right now, and he can fly.
He can like Peter Pan,
Yeah.
or is he a pilot?
No, like Peter Pan.
There you go. So what
Jeff's
is
student can fly. Hang on. Putting it in the show notes.
since we last spoke to you, which was, what did you say it was, Lance, episode 21?
Yes.
That's a long time ago. You have rejoined Canadian Brass.
Wait,
Yes.
what?
Yeah. They're a
I remember when we worked together last summer?
Oh yeah. Actually, I was proud of I had a couple of. So we appeared together at the American Band College 4th of July spectacular, and I am the MC.
You
of
make it
that.
spectacular, Lance.
Well,
it's not America, it's you.
He does.
I would argue if I disagreed. Now, that said, so I am the MC of the show, and so I have period. It's kind of like being the MC of the Oscars without the fame or attention, in that I have to talk for either 1 or 9 minutes, which I only know as they tell me as I'm going out there. And so the first 13 minutes of material that I had was basically ragging on Jeff Nelsen. My favorite joke, actually, I was thinking about it earlier. I said, because he comes out, they play their opening thing, and Jeff is a magician. He's a very, very, very good magician, actually. And so they end their opener, and he does this flash thing, and there's like fire comes out of his hand, and isn't that ooh and wow, that's great. And so I go on about the fact that he's an amazing magician. As a matter of fact, the other night we were out together at the bar, and the bill showed up, and Jeff disappeared.
Ta-da!
Ta-da!
What? So what? Yeah, let's. I was gonna talk to Jeff, but we could just talk to Lance. What was the least funny thing that Lance said at the 4th of July thing?
Oh man, that's hard to judge. Jeff,
I thought you
that
were talking
implies
to Lance.
that implies there was a most funny thing.
Whoa.
I thought you were just
What was the
being a
least not
jackass
funny
again.
thing?
No,
What?
you just said you were going to talk to Lance.
No, and then I was like,
Okay.
no. Then I decided that I would actually ask
Inside
you
your
what the
head.
least funny thing
Nice.
that Lance said was.
I can't tell when you're looking at me.
Well,
Okay.
yeah. What? So
It's a coincidence about talking about not listening to people.
What's that?
I wasn't listening to Lance.
What's
last
that?
Summer.
how much horn are you playing right now?
We did a concert with Symphony Nova Scotia a couple months ago. Yeah. It was awesome. And I play in lessons. And I'm shocked every time it sounds okay. But yeah, I've been writing and trying to exercise, and I built a vegetable garden today, and I'm doing other things.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
But-
There's some people who are playing a ton, and that's awesome. But I'm just not. I'm playing in lessons. I'm still playing a lot, but not. I'm not sitting down to do fundamentals.
Yeah, I wake up eager to do it every other day, and just excited. Okay, today I can do a couple sessions, and then just other things. I mean, I have a 4-year-old and 9-year-old sons and an awesome wife, and so we kind of play some Fortnite and cribbage and cook, and yeah, it's been awesome.
So, what are you writing?
I'm currently been working with my doctoral student named Catherine Webb on a curriculum since all the school went online. So we've been developing guide and workbook for my training in thirds system for audition prep. And then I created a performance project with each student, something that we took the 5 weeks, split, made the first 3 weeks into thirds, so 1 week per third, and we're in the third now, and then they're going to perform it next week and video it or put it together, whether it's a website thing or teaching philosophy document or whatever's useful for them in their future, and then post-performance production, and then publicizing and promoting and all the P words.
Okay, so I'm sorry to stay with content for a minute and non-sarcasm, but when you say teaching in thirds, what do you mean by that? You mean musical thirds? You mean a third of the time? What do you mean by teaching in thirds?
Right. Yeah, I don't know what you just created, but it's called training in thirds.
Okay, training, which is totally different word than teaching and completely unrelated. So I understand the confusion.
Okay, good.
He's not that bright, Jeff.
Yeah, but at least he's cute.
So the training in thirds, unpack it. See, this was an opportunity for me to allow you to unpack a thing that was sort of intellectual and kind of interesting, but instead, let's go back to make fun of you.
Okay. Would you like to keep talking?
Well, actually, yeah, I don't mind. So what kind of vegetables are you growing in your garden?
We don't know yet. We haven't put any dirt in it, but we built the wood around it.
Oh.
So did you go to like a Home Depot, or where did you go do that?
Lowe's, dude.
Lowe's. And what was it? Did you have to wear masks? What's happening in Indiana right now?
Well, actually, what's interesting is you take the time you have for training and you divide it into thirds.
For building a garden?
And that way, is it okay, Andrew, if I just kind of move on without him?
You can do whatever you want. By the end of this, you might be the co-host.
You need one.
Just
All right, building in thirds.
Yes.
All right, training in
Briefing in
thirds,
thirds.
building in thirds, briefing in thirds. Okay,
Crying in thirds.
and
Could you put the keyboard right next to the mic? Is that
it does. It does sound like an old newsroom. Like yeah, like
all right, this just in.
just in?
it's totally.
Breaking news.
It's pretty funny.
He's got some heavy fingers. Okay.
Yep.
Training in thirds. You take whatever time you have from the beginning of your planning till the performance actual, and then you divide that time into thirds. And Lance, that means 3 parts.
Wait. Oh, the toes on my left foot. Okay, got you.
Yep. You taking your shoes off?
Ever since
That's all,
ever since that mining accident.
yeah. Oh,
So
yeah,
you take your time and split them into thirds.
Right. First third. Can you put your shoes back on?
You can
First
smell that in
third
Indiana?
Is the build phase. Oh, I was going to ask
Wow.
you first.
When you say build phase, does a ding happen organically, or is it a thing you have to make happen?
Whenever I have a good idea.
So that's the first time it's dinged.
That's one ding in a row.
Yeah. The signals are for you, Lance. Oh, wait. Start listening. Yeah. Oh.
Okay, first third is to build.
Yeah.
And the second third?
Share.
And the third?
B.
Let's unpack all 3 of those because I'm worried that this is actually going to be really insightful.
I know, that's the best part of this show.
Yes,
Is
exactly.
sometimes we accidentally give out useful information.
You know what's really funny is that Lance and I were talking. We were like, okay, what do we need? We were like, well, we need a horn because we've not had horns in much lately. And then we were like, we should get someone who we're really good friends with so that it's natural just because of how messed up and I think some people are probably like, I wish you guys maybe knew him a little less well because maybe then like this could be like an interview that like, I don't know,
Useful.
with like complete sentences where there's like maybe on average less than 2 people talking at any given time.
Is there? But there is a way they can play this back at double speed, so we can at least half the waiting time for the one good thing.
There is that.
We might stumble on.
All right, let's do this. Let's focus because I think this is going to help my teaching. Teaching in thirds. Give us the first third and then break that down.
Please stop trying to call it teaching in thirds. Thank you.
I'm going to do it on
Focus.
purpose.
So in the treaching in thirds,
tree. Yeah,
He just stepped on
you
it.
got tree brothers.
No, hold on.
You
Let's
get
savor this.
treaching.
Let's savor this because Lance does not step
And
on the
twerks.
punchline of a joke because he nailed the timing and everything, but he said the wrong word, which
He did.
This is rare. It doesn't happen very
true.
often, so I'm enjoying it. So anyway,
I'm thinking about listening to him more often.
I mean, he literally has like studied comedy. He's taken improv comedy troupe like classes, and he's read books and all. He's like, his comedic timing is excellent, and he just stepped in it. That was great. So all right, so
Timing.
so training in thirds. Please give us the first third again and what it means.
First third is build.
Build.
It's your
Get
build phase. And you're basically building.
B-I-L-D. Okay. Got it.
Bill. Yeah, you get charged. You get a bill.
Mm-hmm.
And if let's say, for our purposes here, you're training for an audition and the audition is in 3 months. So you get the audition list. In this first third of time, you are basically, it's about truth, getting true to the score, true to the composer's wishes, figuring out all the notes, all the rhythms, all the intonation tendencies, getting your parts all nicely marked up, and having the recordings on in the background and just getting to know everything that's on that repertoire collection. If you're getting a business proposal together, that's what you're getting is your content, and you're writing your content. If you're going to be teaching a class, you're putting your content together, building your slides, all that stuff. Build. That's the best word I can come up with for prepare and all that you're building. And it's pretty self-sufficient and autonomous. It's your own work that you're getting ready, knowing that the second third is to share. So one of the parts of this first third also is to schedule a bunch of performances in your second third, but schedule them now in your first third. You're getting all set up. But so the greatest thing about this third that I stumbled onto after assigning it to other people was that when you get to the end of your first third, you have to know your shit. Like you have to have learned all your notes by the end of the first third of time rather than, by the time the audition happens.
Yes.
You're ready to go on the end of your, and so that urgency is really good accidental magic or good fear, right? That's
right.
The use of it. So that's the first third.
And then the second third
is sharing. For everyone who can't see right now, both Andrew and Lance have left. They're not even at the microphones. Andrew walked past the mic and said, second third. So the second third, I would tell you about them, but I don't know them, so I can't. Second third is share, and that's the best word I can come up with for perform, because it includes the audience. A woman who, my mother, let me restart that. Can we edit that out?
Nope.
No, nice. Please, okay. Let me see if I can do it again.
Let's go back to your mother.
My mother. It's just, never mind. My mother knows a woman, and my mother teaches singing. That didn't get any better, did it? My mother teaches singing, and a woman
Depends on how you measure.
wrote a book. She wrote a book, and the first sentence in the book was...
Another idea. If only there was a way to stop that from happening.
Is there? Can I turn it off? I keep closing the apps.
That has been one benefit to this this very not funny pandemic is that I have not been subjected to a single asshole listening to anything on a speaker on their cell phone in like a full month. And that is a silver lining right there. So
till now.
Yep. Well, no, yeah. We invited you. So, all right, your mother, who is a singer.
I turned it off on my computer, but now my iPad's dinging. Okay, so this friend of my mother wrote a book, and the first sentence is, the most important thing about performance is communication. And I thought, yeah, it's really good, but not the most important, because communicating is kind of a one-way thing. And if I came out and said, bienvenue tout le monde, je pense le français, mon français ça va mieux, mais je sais tout ça, mais je oublie tout ça. I guess I didn't turn the big ding stuff.
Wait, hold on. If you're young,
just put, in the show notes, I just put bringing the ding. I'm going to start texting him, actually.
Bring the ding. Yeah.
if you're young, you need to understand that he dropped out of middle school, right? Like you don't he has
5 times.
He has no college degrees. He can't figure out how to stop text message dings on an iPhone. And he teaches at IU and is in the most famous brass quintet in the world. So you don't have to be very bright or even have follow through to attain the absolute heights of the brass professional world. So,
Andrew, wait for it. Either he changed his number, or he got the text thing turned off. I got the double bird. Pretty good. So that's the test that I give to my students when they're on stage at a concert. I go to the concert, and I sit in the balcony, and I text all of them to see if their phones are on or off.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's mature. So your mother
I never claimed it.
Your mother.
Hey, your mother, Jeff.
My mother's friend said communication was the most important thing, and I thought, I don't think so. I think connection or something that's a two-way shared experience with an audience, which is what Canadian brass is famous for, right? Crossing that wall, the fourth wall, and speaking to an audience and doing these other things that are more connectionful. So share is the best word I can come up with for, if I keep talking when Lance sits forward, will he sit back again? Or is nope?
Well, when you say things like connectionful, I'm going to write it down.
Oh, okay. Nice.
So you have to understand that if you're new to the podcast, or if you're, Jeff, who's good friends with both of us and never listens because he's an asshole, then the show notes.
That's not the only reason he's an asshole.
The show notes. Oh, I didn't mean to imply that was like a singular list.
Thank you, Lance.
Tried to defend you.
That there was that our show notes are like Easter eggs, actually. So they are full blown
on Easter.
Lance LaDuke. Yeah. Every year I post to social media, shout out to whoever decided that Easter should be celebrated by highly paid brass players. And this year I got nothing, and I got nothing for playing. I got nothing for contracting. My wife got nothing for playing. It was, we have all of the boxes checked right now. To our knowledge, we have all of our health. We got food, shelter. Right. I got literally nothing to complain about. But I would lie if I didn't think about just wearing my night guard all morning long so that I didn't grind my teeth as I thought about the multiple checks that were not coming into the bank account. And so, but happy Easter.
Right.
Indeed. So, all right. So then the third is where we were up to now.
We didn't really get through the second one, right? So it's not to communicate, it's to connect. Yes.
Yep.
And so it is about sharing.
One of you.
Yes, it's about the sharing of the thing that you built.
I thought you were done.
Is there more?
There's more.
Okay.
Sit back, Andrew. So let me share. So this is where we do what's called the magic line performances, and you simulate it's just, you guys have to see Lance's.
Luke,
your name?
I'm your father.
Luke LaLance. Luke
LaDuke.
Luke. LaDuke, just don't puke. The sharing magic line performances. So you simulate the performance and you walk into the room. That's where I think most of us make the mistakes of choosing to think this time matters more, and all these things that can create more fear than we need. And what we're dealing with is basically shrinking the quality gap. I always ask, has anyone ever, let's ask you guys, have you guys ever experienced preparing something to a certain level and then going out on stage and have it go not quite as well?
Comedically, 100% of the time.
Right. Nice. Exactly. And I think everybody does. I mean, the greatest performers in the world, Yo-Yo Ma or whoever your favorites are, they have a quality gap. So the quality gap is the difference between what you can do and what you actually do live.
Yep.
We'll wait for Lance to figure that out. You good? Okay.
Wait, what?
What treat?
You looked like Data from Star Trek Next Generation. Accessing.
Brent Spiner.
That's really dated. So quality gap. We want to shrink the quality gap so that we can walk out there and play as close to our best for like 5 notes in a row, until we choose another fearful thought or focus on something else and create bigger quality gaps. So we're learning how we choose fear, and more importantly, how to replace fear with better thoughts, and focusing on the sound, on the composer, on the audience member, on your colleagues on stage. Anything better than how am I doing? Or, let me succeed by, lacking mistakes. All those lower level definitions of success. Yeah. So we're figuring that out in the throes of actually how to perform. And in that, so we call a different person each day and say, here's the list of rep, pick 5 excerpts and give me 15 minutes with your list, and then I'll go backstage and walk in dead silence, sit down, read an inspirational sheet, and do all these techniques of keeping your quality gap as small as possible. And then getting critique from other people and having them comment. So you can collect those opinions. That's the other thing this second third is all about, is collecting opinions, going to the edge of music making as much as possible, and then finding out how you can avoid crossing that line and having too much music here or there. I remember once I went in, I was getting ready for an audition, and I played for Charlie Duvall. He was playing first in Montreal at the time, trumpet. And I played my loud as I could, and the fast as I could. You're supposed to show him what you can do. And he looked at me and he said, "You're really young, aren't you?" And I said, "Well, yeah, And I said, you need the illusion of maturity." So I've been pretending ever since, different levels of success. But
That's awesome.
yeah, it's just you learn where that line is, and where, a friend of mine also who teaches high school lives next to me, and he talks about the enough, not enough line. And that's it. That's all it's about. It's either enough or it's not enough, and there's that line, and we kind of both are pretty obsessed, not really obsessed, just pretty obsessed about unemotional critique. And so that enough, not enough is a great thing. Was it good or was it bad, but is it hireable? Enough, not enough, And then with audition and music making, I've added the too much. We can do too much as well, but that's not enough professional aspects, is another way to look at that.
So let me pause for just a second, just to clarify. Maybe anyway, shrinking the quality gap is a sense of, so when you mean quality, what you're saying is your definition of where a thing should be versus reality, the gap between the expectation and the ability to deliver?
Well, very great question. I have a few different definitions of best. So the simplest answer is yes, that it is the difference between what you can do and what you actually do live per note, right? Per phrase, per piece, per day. There's different ways of measuring, but that quality,
So it's the gap. It's but in the definition, it's gap. So it's a gap between what? Between which two?
Well, exactly. This is where I have put different definitions of what your best is, because there's your personal best. There's the comparison between what you've done, your absolute best is, versus what you actually did. And again, it's a whole 3D spiral, different depths of measuring, right? There's one note, there's just the front of the note, there's how in tune was the third beat of the note, all compared to all that.
Intent, yeah.
Then, intention isn't in that. Yeah, this is comparing your recording of the best time you've played it versus the recording of the one that you just did. And that's the most objective way of doing it. But then you have your own very subjective thoughts along the way. So you're practicing that as well. I got 2 ways to go here. So another thing, my mother teaches singing. She says, if you're listening and the audience is listening, then who's singing?
Right.
That's an awesome definition of performance. That's the difference between, one of the few differences between practice room and on stage is record yourself, learn later. And then you can compare a little bit more objectively as well. But back to the different bests. So there's personal best, then there's like super best, which is an unemotional word for that I use is standards. And that's the perfect version that doesn't exist, that's never happened by a human being. So that's another thing you can compare to if you want. There's a bunch of different ways you can measure your quality gap. But all of them is a way for you to learn about reality. It's great that you used that reality word because, I think anyone who's frustrated is just ignoring reality. You're frustrated because you're not as good as you think you should have been, but you just weren't, right?
So the
frustration is insanity. It's like moving to Canada and being frustrated with cold weather. Being frustrated with what you just did with your instrument. You did it. Like, slow down and figure it out. Or, anyway.
frustration always has to do with the word should, which is always a red flag, right? Where it's like it should have gone better than that, or
expectations. Those are dangerous things,
and it's just it's anytime that I'm using the word should in a playing setting, my kid should be doing this setting because I've talked to him so many times about how to behave in this social setting. It's all just denying. It's all just denying reality. The gap thing, I stole this from Rex Martin, who was our last guest, who's my former teacher. But I saw him give a masterclass maybe 5 years ago, and I like the way that he put it, which was he asked the student. Boy, I ask my students this all the time. I asked them on a scale of 1 to 10, with a 1 being the worst that they could do today, meaning like there's a bottom level that it's not like they're just going to be reading wrong rhythms if they're prepared, whatever. And a 10 being as well as they could possibly do today. Where was that? And then if they say a 6, then I, get to the bottom of that. If they say a 9, I'll usually say, well, why was it a 9 and not an 8 to help them, as Jacobs used to say, catch themselves doing something right? And if it was a 9 rather than a 10, like what could have closed the gap between, so yeah, just a different, same exact concept, just a way to put it.
Yeah. I use numbers a lot because they're a great way to get unemotional. Like, give it a score, like I would love to build Horn Hero like Guitar Hero, and you just get points for your intonation and accuracy and lack of accuracy.
Well, and you also then you're giving the student the opportunity to create their own rating system in their mind. Mm-hmm. And so then because it's only, it's forte is only important in relation to pianissimo, and fast is only is important in relation to slow, and loud is only important in relation to soft, and whatever is in relation. So if we allow them to have the ruler, the mental ruler, then they have the ability to decide for themselves how this ranks up in their own rating scale in their head. And so I think the more often we can equip them to create their own rating system in their head and evaluate things on that system, I think we're doing them a favor. Speaking of
you're your own version of mental ruler, really, in your own head.
Well,
the other
true.
way I wanted to throw another way I use that scale too is that there's I do this with the students. Scale of 1 to 10. I'll give you 2 questions on scale of 1 to 10. First one is, how much music do you think you made above what's on the page? Like, what did you add to it above the ink? And was it just regurgitation, or are you making it your version? So the first one is, how much do you think you did? Where 10 is the most you could have done with it. And then the second question is, how much of that do you think you got to the audience? And they go, oh yeah.
Well, and it's funny, when you were saying that, an idea popped in my head that you say, well, on a scale of 1 to 10 or 1 to 100 or whatever the scale is, what is the lowest thing that you could have done? And then what is the highest that anyone could have done? And then where does yours fit within that system is a really interesting. I mean, I think we're on the same path here. I think it's just really, really interesting when you unleash that concept on students. And actually, speaking of shoulds, I should take a moment to thank the people at the Mary Papert School of Music at Duquesne University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, beautiful and sunny Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, for their long-standing devoted support of the Brass Junkies. And if you're interested in finding out about the programs and faculty and opportunities at Duquesne University at the Mary Papert School of Music, I would encourage you to go to the show notes, where you will find not only the Easter eggs, but links to all of the wonderful things that Jeff Nelsen has done, except for his garden unless he decides to post images, in which case you can link to those as well. But you will find an opportunity to link to a page that was created specifically for listeners of the Brass Junkies that will take you to the Mary Pappard School of Music Brass Junkies page, which will show you everything that you need to know about what's going on there. And very, very, very special thanks to our dear, dear friend, Jim Coronanova, for making that possible. No? How about Jim? My Corona Nova? No. Jim, mask maker, make me a mask. Nova? No. How about Jim? Social isolation before it was cool. Nova? How about Jim?
No, stop there. You're not
Okay.
improving there.
All right.
Social isolation before it was cool. Nova. I like it. All right. We're
knew I'd
back.
get one.
We're back. The third is B.
Speaking of oversharing, good memory.
Thank you.
Yeah. B. So you're still performing for people in your third, but here's what most people neglect, which is I'm pretty sure how I ended up getting picked at auditions, because I don't think I was very good.
Height.
And I was tall. It's really useful for screened audition slants. Can you sit back again? So
How tall are you?
there's 6'4"
Yeah, that's how tall I am.
ish. Really?
Explains a lot.
Nice. My dad was 6'6", so that's why.
Goodness.
You would say
Standing
he's
up?
5'18". He was pretty round, all directions.
My dad is 6'2", and he was he was tall very early in his life, and he got asked a few times if he played basketball, and I guess he started answering with, "No, do you play miniature golf?"
Nice. So my teacher in Edmonton, that's awesome. My first teacher in Edmonton, David Hoyt, he said that he was at a reception after an orchestra concert, and he's this guy who was I think he was a math professor or something like that. And he said to my teacher, he said, I used to play French horn in junior high school. And he said back to him, he said, oh yeah, I used to play with a protractor when I was in school.
Kept stabbing myself.
I like it. All right, so
Okay.
sorry, you're
Speaking of angles.
So you got chosen, even though you weren't that good, which I think is bullshit. But we'll go with it.
But I think a lot of it is that people neglect this third phase, which I definitely obsess about, and that is playing it as close as possible to your best on your first time out. So this third is, so it's not about abilities. When, most people, a lot of people I found go to auditions hoping they have a good day. And it's not that rampant anymore, but I think it used to be a little bit more that they really pull, did I get it? Kind of stuff that I did as well. But I practiced that for a month beforehand, 2 months beforehand, a bunch of times, walking into the room, sitting down, dead silence, and figuring out how to play it. They'll never hear your second version of anything. So this third is B, and it's all three of these thirds have different priorities, even though you're practicing the whole time and all this stuff. In this third, your priority goes from collecting great ideas from other people and finding the best plan and the best, ideas and critique, to now you are figuring out yourself. You're making all these performances and all this repertoire a part of you. So when you walk into that audition or performance, you're sharing who you are, and you're playing it for the 873rd time. So it's B. You just be you, and you're not trying to figure out any other great ideas about it. You've made the plan in the first two versions. Now it's having a small quality gap and figuring out how to play but you're still getting critique from people and collecting it and taking it in. But I think one of the mistakes we do a lot is the day before the performance, you're chasing big ideas and shifts and, and all this other stuff. It'll always be better, and make it better tomorrow. But for this big audition training, I think that urgency of having it figured out and planned in the first two thirds is great. You can always add in your third, but that's not the priority anymore. The priority is knowing how to play it as close as possible to your best, 3 notes in a row, on your first version.
So the B is the execution.
The build B share, build share B is part of this fearless performance circle that we're engaged in all the time. So another version of or usage of build B share is that you build, you practice, and at some point your practicing stops and you're about to go on stage. So that's your build phase is practicing, on stage is sharing. But there's another spot in the middle that I've called B as well, and that's backstage, where you take a moment and embrace everything you've done, read an inspirational sheet that says things like they want you to play well, all these things, and then you hopefully end up letting go of shoulda, coulda, wouldas, and your gig now is to walk out there and execute like an Olympic athlete, and you want to execute as close as possible to your best. You can make it better tomorrow, but right now it's a lot more about walking out there as much like yourself, authentic self as possible. I'll walk out and execute.
Okay, so I've known you long enough, and this show is the way it is, that you're going to think that this is only sarcasm and busting your chops. But what I think it's important, because I think this is really, really awesome what you've done and what you've created. And so I mean this sincerely. I don't mean this sarcastically. You just said build B share, build B share, build share B. Was that a misspeak, or was that a literal thing? Because I think I think you could defend either, and so I really think this is super high quality content, and I want to be clear about it. Which is weird from a sarcastic son of a gun.
No,
to interject, Lance just put more warnings before that question than we had to put before the Mark Gould episode of this podcast. So anyway, now answer.
Well, anytime we accidentally give really high quality content, I want to make sure that we give okay, if you were listening at double speed, slow it down. No, now is the opportunity.
A few knuckleheads just logged into Apple Podcasts and changed their ratings to 2 stars. Be like, these guys are serious for like 6 straight minutes. They're dead to me.
So really, this is when you start listening, Lance, this part? Shoot.
I'm sorry, what?
Essentially, you've caught me in a position of formatting that has recently changed.
Oh.
So that the training in thirds, I had these different priorities, and then I realized after and recently that it's share, build, share, B. That third of time, your priority is B. But in the overall fearless performance spiral and circle and everything that I've been doing for 20 years, it's been build, B, share, where you build the music. Then when you can't build anymore, like the overall thing, like the training in thirds, all 3 thirds of that time is one big build phase as well. And then you have a moment backstage before the actual audition, and that's your 1B where you embrace what you got and control what you can, end up letting go of the rest. Learn, love well, let go. Learn, love well, let go. When you're backstage, you're loving well, so that you can end up letting go. Love well what you've done and who you are, and then you walk out and share. So that's the build, be, share, big circle. Did that help at all? Like that?
Well,
but they're
I
still
think the
taking
share
form.
and the B. I mean, I understand that it's an evolution, and I understand that each of them is equal, and that the sequencing is developing and evolving as you learn more, and as you work with more people, and as you experience it, and as you grow. But I mean, what I'm hearing from you is that either is valid. I think it's
right.
The order. I mean, the build, I think, needs to be first.
Got to front load that.
Not that it can't be a consequence of a previous set of build, share, B.
Sure.
But that the build has to be, that's where the rubber meets the road, and that's where the shovel meets the dirt. Oh, look at that.
And it also happens
backstage. That was
backstage.
pretty good, right?
That was good.
Not
nice.
bad, yeah.
Sorry, the shovel and the road thing.
Yeah.
And then build starts as soon as you leave the stage as well.
Right.
Once now you can success collect and think about something you did well, or you can just go pout and have a pity party, or do both. Ice cream is good for either.
I think share B is a very fluid. I mean, I would understand the difficulty in the sequencing if I was trying to program that for someone. That I can understand why, in certain circumstances, one ought to take more precedent than the other.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a timing thing, and it depends on how you're looking at. That's why it's a fearless performance spiral. It's not just a circle, and there's all these little circles. Like in one practice session, I do all three. If I do a magic line performance, and I'm looking at what I'm building, and then I'll go to my simulated backstage and stand there and go through my backstage rituals of whatever it is that has me get as good as I can get in 5 seconds. This was something I realized as well, is that some people, they stretch their arms, or violinists. I know one violinist he would stretch his arms and try and get to a certain state, but that's dangerous to look for a specific state of mind or physicality, because if you can't find that state, you might think less of yourself. So for me, I've learned that backstage, I just get as good as I can get in 3 seconds. I also noticed that I usually look out the window or look somewhere and look like as a real non sequitur thing. I realized when I was getting ready for the finals of an audition, I looked out the window of the hotel, and there was this guy walking down the street, and he was in his suit, and he had his paper bag lunch and everything. And I looked at him, and I was like, geez, you're just walking to another day at your job. I'm here. This audition might determine who I am and all the kind of whatever I get to do and all this. And it's just, for you, it's just Tuesday. And then I went, you know what, Jeff, it's Tuesday for you too. And I wrote it on my inspirational sheet, it's just Tuesday. So I do something like that most days backstage, where I just look and go, look, a light bulb, bird, something to get me into
squirrel.
It's squirrel. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anyway, so all these different, and I used to be a little fearful of calling them rituals, but they're best served as rituals so that you don't spend any mental resources on trying to remember that you do this enough times where everything is habit. And when I talk about the magic line performance method, I'm emptying my horn. Like if I'm talking about the magic line between backstage and on stage, it's such a habit for me that I empty backstage, so I don't walk out and empty on stage. Anyway, all these different habits to streamline your performance process, and there's a ton of performance systems and process that work, and this is one of them. But I want it to be a skeleton through which everyone else can figure out what works for them.
Well, one of the things I really like about what you're saying is that it minimizes the notion of chance, because Andrew and I are both on the same page about Charles Duhigg and James Clear and the notion of habit and the importance of habit and the importance of routine and ritual, if you want to use the word ritual. But it is the actions that you do that will be the predictor of the success that you have. And so I think it totally resonates. I think it makes absolute perfect sense.
Yay.
So
yeah.
that was an actual unqualified compliment, which is why you didn't recognize it and it stunned you. I'm sorry. That's what it was.
You aren't qualified. You're right.
It's true.
I saw a great. Yeah, you guys should check out this online chat with David Cooper, who's the new principal horn of Chicago Symphony, and Eric Rusk, who's amazing horn, famous horn player, and one of my mentors early on. Eric said really early on in his. I'll send you a link to the chat, but Eric says, I don't think myself into good action. I act myself into good thought. I love that. There's so many gems in that little chat. One of them was time takes time. It's so great. I love that idea.
I saw, I'm going to send actually Lance this link because I saw you give a masterclass and I took a whole bunch of quotes. I just texted it to you, Lance, for the show notes. I saw you give a class at George Mason. Jesus, was 8 years ago now. But yeah, the very first quote I wrote down was, "Success not only comes to those who want it the most, but those who want it the most often." Yeah, Jeff was just mouthing along with that. So yeah, but that's it, right? The ritual thing, the habit thing. Yeah,
you got little Post-it notes everywhere in your house. How many times can you remind yourself? Do it, and then you chunk it, and then you go off and you do a little bit of work, but then you go doubt and you do the other stuff too. But it's how often can you get back up? Well, James
Clear talks. He's not the only one, but James Clear, I think, just distills things down to just. He's amazing. He talks about set a goal that you cannot possibly fail to achieve, meaning literally one push-up a day. Anyone has one push-up a day. It doesn't matter if you've got a a relative who's like in the hospital that you're with 24/7, you can do one push-up. I mean, it's like anybody has time to do one push-up.
My issue is not the time.
No,
it's
I
the
know. Yeah, well, there is
muscle
that. But that's also why he
ability.
says one, right? Even if he said 5, there'd be like a big chunk of us who would be like, well,
No.
like,
One is too much for
yeah,
me.
well, just do a fake push-up, like, stick the butt up and, it's like there's ways to cheat. But go to check out the link to this in the show notes. It's awesome. There's some really, really good quotes in here. You can't control perception. You can only control presentation. Our level of nerves is inversely proportionate to our level of preparation. There's just TV is getting great.
Can I leave for a bit?
Yeah, you could totally leave for a bit.
Can you read a bit slower? I just need to go get a refill. That guy's got some good stuff.
The Charles Lazarus once, I saw him give a master class before I had pretty much almost every one of these that's up on my it's at andrewhitz.com/quotes. And every single one of these, with the exception of one, was all before my son was born, because kids are amazing and they also ruin your life. And I just don't go to master classes anymore because I'm always busy. But anyway, Charles Lazarus, who gave an amazing masterclass at the National Trumpet Competition, he once messaged me and thanked me for putting all of those quotes up, because he said that when he gives classes that he goes to my website and reads all of the quotes to brush up on. I'm like, wait a minute, and he's a brilliant natural. He's a great communicator. He plays his ass off. He teaches his ass off. He's incredible. But he said that he actually reads the quotes to remind him of some of the good stuff to say. I'm like, you're welcome. Like, you said it though. Like, I mean, I should be thanking you. But anyway, good stuff. So speaking of good stuff, Parker Mouthpieces provides the hosting for the Brass Junkies. Parker Mouthpieces offers fine, customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, including the Andrew Hitz Artist Model Tuba mouthpiece and the Lance LaDuke Model Euphonium mouthpiece.
What?
I love
You can find out more at parkermouthpieces.com or follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Not. Well, that's going to be in the red. Yeah, there we go. We were talking about levels before, and now he just ruined everything.
If you were driving right now, you're welcome for waking you up.
No, yeah. If you're driving, go home. What are you doing?
What are you doing driving?
Yeah,
true.
Go home. If you were listening to this in the future, hopefully things are back to normal in the world. But we are recording this on April 12th, just 2 days before it's going to come out, and we are all at under stay-at-home orders. So speaking of which, this is the last thing that I wanted to talk about, and then because we're actually almost to an hour, because it took us 30 minutes to get started. And that was after the 20 minutes before we hit record. So
Is it still April 12th?
It is still barely.
I've had the diarrhea since Easter's.
I'm just gonna keep right on moving there. One
Any
last.
fans of Nacho Libre, reach out personally to me.
We need to hear your advice for Jens Lindemann. I think that this is, as you know, and you know Jens really well. But this is a dangerous time for someone like him with chop problems, because he's got nothing but time right now. It's like, so he could be using this for good, like getting out of this hole, or that brain of his could just be to just keep digging. So what advice would you give to Jens for these in these desperate times?
Jens who?
What? He's like the Royal Order of the Canadian Trumpet Circle or something. Like he's important to you people.
He's like a trumpet mountie.
He is
really
on a.
Try and move on.
You know how I know he's Canadian royalty? Because he is. He's. When I was in Banff with him, the one summer I was there, we're eating at this at Lake Louise at the restaurant there at the hotel, which was like I was the only tuba player there, and nice place, and Glenn Sather is the the hockey legend is at the table next to us, And Glenn Sather, I'm like, that's Glenn Sather. And he walks up and goes, hey, Jens. I'm like, holy shit. Yeah, there you go. So, but what advice would you have for the Canadian treasure that is Jens Lindemann?
Jens Lindemann. Can't help him. Pass the beer nuts.
Wait, hold on. What if you don't have beer nuts and it's not safe to go to? Well, I mean, we're going to stores, but you shouldn't just go to stores to get beer nuts. That would make you not kind to your fellow man and woman. So, what other advice do you have?
I sent some magic tricks to Lance. I think I could maybe, Lance, I don't know if you've opened them, so you could just send them straight to get a hobby, really?
He needs to get a hobby. I like it. I like it. It sounds like he's been treating the trumpet as a hobby for a while now.
They'll be share that shit, yeah.
I'm gonna share. I'll share a story about the kit that you sent me in the bonus episode, because there's
nice.
You will really appreciate this.
Awesome.
Boy, I hate to say this because you're a dear friend, but that teaching stuff and the thirds and all that was good for me to hear, man. That was like serious content.
Okay, so let's pause
really
for a
good.
second. So how is that going to come out? In what form will that, like, if we want to know more about that, or we want to study with you, or we want to know, like, I'm hooked. How do I get more of that Jeff Nelsen into me?
Ooh. Well, it's real magic, Lance. You know this. And the kit that we got.
No, I mean, like, if I want to know this, is this going to be a part of the Fearless Performing thing? Can I do this as an online course? Can I do this as, like, if I want to know more about all of that stuff we just unpacked? And I mean this sincerely, even though it's not coming out that way.
I find myself sometimes when I repeat a sentence, it sometimes gets better.
Yeah.
Do you?
But sometimes when I repeat a sentence, it gets better.
It that much?
He always used to play the same. He always used to play the same jazz solos.
How would you like me to play it?
And they never got any better.
How would you like me to play it?
It's very, very clear that he believes it's going to get better, but he just keeps saying
How
it.
would you like me to play it? Okay, so will it be a book? Will it be a course?
God,
Will it be a
again.
video? I'm not stopping. In what form will this content come out, Jeff Nelsen?
At this point, I think the first published release will be Training in Thirds that I have put together with Catherine Webb, who's awesome. And then
Which is a thing I can read or watch or listen to.
People who can read it, yes.
Okay.
And then I'm starting tomorrow studying doing another kick at the cat of online courses. I've done a few online courses, but they're like they're at certain schools with different things. The Musician's Toolkit and Toronto Conservatory. I did one about teaching teachers how to teach fearless performance. Can't remember what the actual title was. And the person in charge of putting that together, I think, left the school, so I don't even know if that one's coming out, and it was awesome. So I'm going to be doing some online courses as well.
Well, that's awesome.
Get that content out there.
Well, good stuff. We will publicize that when it is ready for.
And then you can go to the Indiana University Jacobs School of Music as well.
Hey, look at you!
It's in the links.
And then Canadian Brass, we talk about that in all our master classes.
Also in the links.
We're doing online chats as well. I'm doing one every Friday at 12:30 or 1 Eastern, live on Facebook, on the Canadian Brass Facebook page. And then every Wednesday, the quintet's getting together and doing online chats, I think at 12:30 as well, or 1 on the Canadian Brass Facebook page. You can find out all about that by subscribing to the Canadian Brass newsletter.
Yeah. Look at you. So we're going to have Jeff, I think that's his name, stick around here for the bonus episode where we are going to actually ask him about what Canadian Brass is doing right now, like kind of what what their immediate plan is, since everything has just gone completely haywire. And then we are going to. It has been shared at some point in the past, but we're going to tell. I'm going to tell the "How would you like me to play it" story that Lance was just.
How would you like me to play it?
That one will entertain Mr. Nelsen here. And then we're also going to hear about the Magic Kit and anything else. If you'd like to hear this and also this bonus episode and get access to all previous bonus episodes immediately, including Sam Palafian and Jim Pandolfi and Mark Gould and J.D. Shaw and a whole bunch of people, then you can go to patreon.com/thebrassjunkies, and you can become a Patreon patron today and hear a whole lot of content. So, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us and for setting the mood lighting in your basement and yeah,
in your panic room.
And
thank you guys. Thanks for doing all of this, what you guys are doing, and creating this value and sharing of yourselves for this. Really important. You guys have been knocking it out.
Thanks,
Thank
man.
you.
And I also
Can't wait to listen to one of the episodes at some point.
And I also want to specifically thank anyone who is still listening to this who made it through the first 30 minutes of this. Like, you are, that is the kind of perseverance that this world is going to need to come out from the other side of this thing. So, yeah, you are the future. So, no pressure. So, all right, thank you to Jeff. And Lance, thank you.
No, thank you, Andrew.
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easters.
Yeah.
I've had the diarrhea since Easter's.
This was totally better than getting paid a bunch of money to play. No, it wasn't. I tried. Anyway, thank you. And that is going to do it for another episode of The Brass Junkies. You've been listening to The Brass Junkies on the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. If you would like to hear the bonus episode featuring today's guest, please visit patreon.com/thebrassjunkies to learn how you can support the show and instantly access all bonus materials, as well as gain access to a special patron-only Facebook group. The Brass Junkies is produced by the amazing, wonderful, and truly inspirational Will Houchin. The theme music was composed by Fernando Dados and performed by Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke. We are at Pray for Jens on Twitter and Instagram and have a Facebook page at facebook.com/prayforjens. You can find out more about the Brass Junkies and all the other Pedal Note Media podcasts at pedalnotemedia.com. This has been a presentation of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network.